Good morning, class, and welcome to lecture 11N, Solving for Y. The date is 9/17/13. Please go ahead and copy down everything that is you see here on the board. You have about 3 minutes. Press pause now. So the essential question is, how do you find the slope and y-intercept from a linear function? Well, don't forget that the essential question you should be answering during the notes. So go ahead and highlight the essential question. And then during the notes, if you answer the essential question, you can actually write your summary before the end of the lesson, okay? So as soon as you're done, or you find the answer to the essential question, go ahead and write your summary right then and there. That way you don't forget what the answer was. Alright, so solving for y. For linear and quadratic functions, we want the y to be isolated or by itself on the left side. If for a linear function, and this is only for linear function, we know that this is a linear function because x is to the first power. We talked about this briefly in the last chapter. So linear function is when x is to the first power. Okay? So when x is to the first power and y is by itself, we already know the slope. And we know the y-intercept. Now those are two important things when we want to know some information about the graph of a function, the slope and the y-intercept. If you know these two things, it makes it very easy to graph a function, which you will learn later on this week. So, but the question is, what happens when y is not by itself? Well, go ahead. We'll see in the next slide. So example 1 says, find the slope and y-intercept of 3x minus 4y equals 12. So you might want to know what happens, what do you do when y is not by itself. Okay, so when y is not by itself, then we need to go and look to solve for y. So in the last chapter, we learned how to solve for y. Remember, you want to go ahead and let's start boxing the y value and everything that's touching the y value. So we want to get this negative 4y by itself. So here is the line. Anything that is not part of the y value, you need to move over across the line. Remember, when we cross the line, you need to do the opposite. So the thing we need to do is solve y. Okay? And we do that by doing the opposites. First thing we need to get rid of is the positive 3x. We know that the 3x and the 4y are separated by a symbol. So because they're separated by a symbol, that means that the 3x and the 4y are connected via addition/subtraction. So since there's a symbol between the 3x and what we want to isolate and 4y, we know they are being added or subtracted, right? In this case, the 3x and the 4y. The 3x, you have to go by the symbol in front of the 3x. So the 3x is positive, so to get rid of a positive 3x, I'm going to subtract 3x. Okay? So then, what are we left with? Then 3x's cancel out, where the negative 4y drops down. And then remember from the last chapter, chapter 3, we remember that since these are not like terms, they drop down separately. They are not like terms, so the negative 3x and the 12 drop down separately. Now I want the negative 3x to drop down first because remember in y equals mx plus b, the x comes before the non-x term. Okay? So then we have to determine how is the negative 4 and the y separated? Well, if you look at them, they are touching. Because they are touching, that means they're connected through multiplication, and to get rid of the negative 4, we divide. Right? So now the 4's cancel out, and the negatives cancel out, and we drop down the y. And now it's already by itself. The negative cancel each other out. And we're left with 3 over 4x. Positive 12 divided by negative 4 is negative 3. So what does this tell me? So I'm lazy. I'm just going to box this because I know that this tells me the slope and the y-intercept. And I'm going to label a couple of the pieces. Make sure that you label the pieces for your homework tomorrow. So the slope is the 3 over 4. The slope, the x is not the slope. It tells me where the slope is, okay? And the negative 3 is my y-intercept. Okay? If 3 is y-intercept, 3 over 4 is your slope. And then later on this week, I will show you how to graph using y equals mx plus b. Alright, so in this example, we want to find the slope and the y-intercept again. So let's set up a couple of steps that we should be doing. Remember, so we have 7x plus y equals 20. Step 1 is given. Let's use red for our steps. Okay. The next thing that we need to do is we need to isolate the y. So anything not part of this box needs to be moved over. So we're going to subtract the x value. Okay? So we're going to subtract 7x from both sides. The 7x's cancel with each other. We're left with y is equal to negative 7x plus 20. Now a lot of you might be thinking, well, alright, what if I just wanted to move the 7 and then the x? Well, you can't do that because right now they're a complete unit. Before, if we were to be solving for x, we'd be doing completely different orders of operation. Before we're used to solving for x, but now we're solving for a different variable and we've got two variables, so you have to be careful. Whatever variable you're solving for, the other one you treat. So since we're not solving for x, we are going to treat x like a number, like its own number, okay? So it's going to move with the 7, okay? So now, y is already by itself, so we are done. So we're going to box this. And we're going to say that our slope is negative 7, or another way you could say it is negative 7 over 1. We're going to need that one for tomorrow, or in the future, I mean. And then our y-intercept is positive 20. Okay? Alright guys, one more example, and then we will be done. Okay, example 3. It says find the slope and y-intercept of 5y plus 2x equals 20. Alright, so let's set it up. Remember that step 1 from the last slide. We need to box our y value. And we are going to get rid of the x value by adding and subtracting. Now be careful, because here our y value and our x value switch, so it doesn't matter where x and y are, we still go through our same steps, right? So be careful. Remember to be sure to be solving for the correct variable. We're still solving for y. So 5y, these cancel, equals negative 2x plus 20. Remember, we drop these down separately because they're not like terms. The next step, now we need to get y by itself. These are touching, so because they're touching, we divide, right? When things are touching like this, so the 5 and the y are touching, so to get rid of the 5, we divide. Why? Because when things are touching, that means multiplication. To get rid of multiplication, we divide. That's a common thing that people get confused about. We often know what to do, but we don't really know why. Okay? So remember that rule as we get more in depth into Algebra 1. So if things are touching, that's multiplication. If things have a symbol in between, that's addition, subtraction. Alright, so the 5's cancel and we get y equals negative 2 over 5. I'm going to bring the x out to the side because it looks nicer. And then 20 divided by 5 is 4. I'm going to box this now that y is by itself. And we're going to label a couple things, alright? So remember that slope is negative 2 over 5. And then the y-intercept is positive 4. And that concludes today's lesson. So, hopefully you've written everything down. I'll give you a few seconds. Now you need to go ahead and write your summary. Now that we're getting a little bit more into the school year, I'm not going to tell you what to write in your summary. You have to go back to your essential question and then answer it using your notes. So what I would suggest you do is to write your summary. You go back to your essential question. You look for anything that tells you how do you find slope and y-intercept from the function. You highlight those, and then you pretty much plug and chug. You write, today I learned, and then pretty much that you find the slope and y-intercept by, and then plug and chug whatever you highlighted. And then that should complete your summary. Alright, hopefully you guys were very good for this up. I appreciate it, and have a great day.